Hi, I'm an HIV/AIDS workplace policy. Check it. HIV/AIDS workplace policy. Now, I've been trying to get into some of these properties to do some work. Sometimes they say, yes, man, come, man. But this week, not a good week. But the sector needs policies like me. But we'll talk about that later. Right now, let us try and see if we can get at least 1 foot inside here. Come with me. Come, come. Hi.
We are not hiring today.
Oh, well, hear me now, big man. You know how this HIV thing can affect our businesses, right? That's why we have to set the thing proper so everybody know what is what. That's why every business in the tourism sector needs someone like me. You see me?
Excuse me. Are you on HIV workplace policy?
That's me.
For real? I can't believe it. You know how I've been trying to get one like you going on this property, but I just didn't know where to start. Come on, I can't afford to miss this opportunity. He's with me.
I'm with her. It must have been destiny. Boy, after the rough week I had, this was a dream. Turns out, I had landed in the hands of the human resources manager, Carol, the perfect person to start the process. She know all levels of staff and have a direct line to management. I couldn't have asked for more. But first, I wanted to make sure that she understood why she needed me here in the first place. You know, make sure we're on the same page. So, Carol, tell me, why do you think you really need me here?
Well, I know the Ministry of Labor has a life-threatening illness policy under which HIV/AIDS in the workplace falls. And the Tourism Product Development Company also has one geared to the tourism sector. But here on this property, we need our own HIV/AIDS policy that speaks to our needs to protect the rights of our workers, whether they're infected or not.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We begin with the national anthem of Jamaica. Honorable Edmund Bartlett, Minister of Tourism, Mr. Wade Mars, Executive Director of the Tourism Product Development Company Limited, TPDCO, representatives from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning again and welcome. Whether you're joining us on the Zoom platform, on JIS or TPDCO's Facebook pages, or on our YouTube channel, or on PBCJ, I'm elated you took the time to join us. What a delight it is for me to be here this morning to guide you through this very important webinar. International World AIDS Day was celebrated on December 1. And while it's still fresh in our minds, we want to ensure that you have the correct information and answers to your questions so that you're empowered in respect of your sexual health practices. Our theme for today is HIV and tourism, how one impacts the other. It is my hope that at the end of the session, you'll be able to identify exactly how that takes place and better understand how we can play our part to ensure we stay safe. Before we begin, we have some housekeeping matters. Please ensure that you are muted. If your video is on, make certain your background is not distracting, and if you have questions or comments, and we welcome that, please put it in the chat, and our monitor will pose those questions at the appropriate time on your behalf. Please also note that this meeting is being recorded for quality and training purposes. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting and authorizing TPDCO or any entity authorized by TPDCO, such as JIS, to copyright, use, and publish any of the images or recording in any format taken during the current year. You understand that these images may be used for a variety of purposes and may appear on the TPDCO website, the JIS website, in the TPDCO magazine, on promotional materials, or any other media now known or to be invented. You also understand that TPDCO or any entity authorized by TPDCO will use the images exclusively for TPDCO purposes and not for any commercial gain. We encourage you to use your emoticons and listen keenly, as at the end of each segment we will have some giveaways for some bright sparks. As is customary, we begin with Thanksgiving. Sandra Barnett is a valuable and a dedicated team member here at TPDCO, and she now joins us for our invocation this morning. Sandra?
We all feel discouraged at times, and perhaps you're feeling discouraged even now. You work hard and you're not seeing the fruits of your labor, and you're trying to get through this pandemic, but it seems like a constant downpour, not to mention the crime and the violence that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Yes, we all feel discouraged at times, but all is not lost. We can rise above discouragement. And here are a few suggestions. Be honest with yourself. Acknowledge how you're feeling. You can talk to someone, a trusted friend or confidant. And most importantly, talk to God. He is a present help in trouble, according to the Bible. Be purposeful. Do what you believe you're called to do. Oftentimes, you're discouraged from pursuing your dream, but it is your dream. Don't let persons dissuade you from going after what God has placed in you. Do not let criticisms cause you to forsake your dream. Be watchful. Know that there are those who care for you. You have your friends, your family members, you have your colleagues, and even your neighbor next door. They are there to give you the support that you need. And lastly, be thankful. Give thanks from your heart. When we're thankful and appreciative, we find that the things that got us down, they no longer bother us so much because we are counting our blessings and naming them one by one. Let us pray. Most holy and righteous Father, as we come before your awesome presence this morning, that you have provided us with what we need to rise above discouragement. Lord, we thank you for all of us gathered here on these various platforms for hosting of the TPDCO HIV Awareness Seminar. We thank you for the management and staff, and especially for those who have conceptualized and organized this forum. May your blessings rest upon everyone. We ask that you enable all who are present to engage this process. And we pray that today we will not only gain knowledge and understanding, but we will resolve to be more responsible and responsive to those who are experiencing these health challenges. Help us to value each other, knowing that illness is no respecter of persons. We thank you again for your continued leading and direction. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.
And amen. Thank you so much, Sandra. It's now time to hear the official welcome from our Executive Director, Mr. Wade Mars, who has hit the ground running. Please welcome him. We can give him a virtual round of applause. Come on.
Labor and Social Security and the Jamaica network of seropositives, J+, attendees, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm in high spirits as TPDCO lends its voice to yet another pivotal activity, one that is envisaged to improve your knowledge and professional growth. I am pleased to be a part of this conversation on a topic that is crucial to the most valuable asset of tourism. That is you, our service providers. I welcome you wholeheartedly. This webinar, which will focus on the theme HIV and tourism, how one impacts the other, will delve into the facts about HIV, AIDS, and other sexually transmitted diseases, debunk myths, and highlight laws and regulations surrounding human rights, stigma, and discrimination. These topics will help you to understand the need to be empowered about your well-being and to exercise caution when making decisions regarding your sexual health. Jamaica's tourism sector maintains a high standard because of your contribution. We are therefore obliged to give you access to information and resources that will benefit you in the long run. At the TPDCO, we are guided by a mandate to maintain, develop, and enhance the tourism product. We are charged with destination assurance, and our goal is to go above and beyond to ensure that we achieve just that. Unity is strength, which will help to bolster today's activity. I am ecstatic that our other credible organizations will be joining us today with experts who are equipped with extensive knowledge on the topic. I express my gratitude to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and our special guest and advocate, Joan Stephen, who will speak from her own experience of being diagnosed and living with the illness. Her story, I'm sure, will give a glimpse into the discrimination and the pain that is often faced by persons living with HIV. Thank you for agreeing to openly join this important discussion. We hold firm to the notion that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest, and when armed with the right information, we will not only make more informed decisions, but we will have an even more motivated and vibrant sector. I would like to encourage you to open your minds and absorb the information that will be presented today and to use it in your daily lives. Thank you for your continued support and best wishes for an enlightening day.
Thank you, Mr. Mars. We welcome you again to the TPDCO family, and we appreciate your sharing with us this morning. Now we move to our Minister of Tourism, Mr. Edmund Bartlett, who has demonstrated in so many ways that he has the tourism team at heart. Please give the Honourable Edmund Bartlett a virtual round of applause as he comes to make his remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me begin by welcoming you all to another interesting virtual session brought to you by the TPDCO. For the past year, the entity has been effectively utilizing the online space to provide valuable information about the organization and its services. This has been a blessing for our service providers who, amidst the challenges and changes, can still access information. Once applied, the information provided is bound to positively impact your professional and indeed your personal lives. As you are aware, the tourism sector is a people sector, and that is one of the reasons we stand out. Jamaicans are a naturally warm and friendly people, and our vibrant nature has given us a competitive edge and world-class status. However, while it is always a joy to celebrate our people, their skills and talents, it is also our duty to protect you, our valuable workforce. At this, the first HIV awareness webinar, which will be guided by the theme, HIV and Tourism, How One Impacts the Other, the necessity of safeguarding and empowering our valuable workers with the right information will be emphasized. It is in fact our pledge to improve your well-being, and that includes arming you with the knowledge and resources that will help to protect you and your families. In this highly interactive industry, we understand connections are made, which is why the TPDCO opens this space to allow you to learn, rationalize, and recognize the importance of responsible socializing. Not only will this session drive home the fact about HIV, AIDS, and other sexually transmitted disease, STDs, it will empower you to make the right choices, and most importantly, understand its impact on you and the tourism sector. Today we'll also focus on your health-related rights, how you are protected by the laws of the land, as well as information about discrimination and stigma. This and other initiatives form part of our preparation for a bigger and better sector and an open-minded and empowered workforce. So this session, I have no doubt, will play a major role in your enlightenment. It is therefore with my whole heart that I encourage you to actively listen and apply the information that you will receive today. Take charge of your health and the health of those around you as we work towards becoming better versions of ourselves every day and towards resetting our tourism industry to become more expansive, inclusive, and sustainable. Thank you and enjoy the session.
Thank you so much, Minister. I'm inspired by your tenacity of purpose, and I'm also encouraged by your resilience as you toil with the partners in the sector to reset the tourism industry and improve our country. You've never lost hope, and you continue to pound the pavement to ensure that Jamaica does her best. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an interesting program, chock full of nuggets for you. I'll be speaking to some experienced and knowledgeable guests who will also take your questions and comments. Like I said, at the appropriate time, please put them in the chat. And don't be afraid to use your emojis and light up this room. Now, to kick things off, let's welcome a medical practitioner of 20 years to talk health and HIV. She's a graduate of the University of the West Indies with a degree in medicine and a postgraduate degree in public health. She's currently pursuing her doctorate in public health. Her active involvement in the HIV program started from 2003 as a pediatric resident and has evolved in her becoming the program manager for the HIV program for Jamaica, where she presently is the Director for Treatment, Care and Support, a position held since 2018, and has been the Acting Senior Medical Officer for the HIV, STI, TB program since January 2020. Our special guest, Dr. Rob Allen, has been a program manager for the HIV program at all levels in Jamaica, holding the positions of Medical Officer of Health for HIV for Kingston and St. Andrew, and HIV Coordinator for the HIV STI program for Southeast Region Health Authority. In addition to her involvement in other public health programs, Dr. Rob Allen has a passion for the HIV program and is committed to the improvement and advancement of the program within Jamaica and the Caribbean. Help me to welcome Dr. Alicia Rob Allen. Morning, Dr. Rob Allen. How are you?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm always delighted to speak in forums with regards to HIV. I have a passion for HIV and HIV within Jamaica so that we can stem the epidemic within our country, especially in our most productive sectors.
Yes. All right. Well, we have a lot of questions to throw at you this morning, and we're going to be moving swiftly because we do have a tight program today and we want to get in as much as we can. But tell me a little bit about the Ministry of Health and Wellness's HIV STI program and its purpose.
So the HIV STI program in the Ministry of Health and Wellness really has a mandate to provide prevention services, treatment services, as well as enabling environment and human rights in terms of ensuring that our persons living and affected by HIV are able to access services, not just treatment services, but social services and services within the community to better themselves as persons and to live a normal life and be contributing persons to the society that we live in. So under the umbrella of the HIV program, HIV STI TB unit within the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the government of Jamaica, through the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and also through grants that we get from the Global Fund, as well as the President Emergency Fund, for USA. We're able to execute our HIV program within the government, non-government, civil society organizations, through the church, as well as other entities within Jamaica. So it really is a robust program that allows all the partners that are needed at the table to execute the program so that it can be delivered in the best way possible for the country.
I was going to ask you who exactly is responsible for the HIV STI program, but it sounds like you have a lot of collaboration going on there.
There's a lot of collaboration, and we work as a team. Several government entities, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Labor and Social Security, Ministry of Education. We have our civil society organizations like JISTV, ASHE, Jamaica Network of Seropositives. Yes. We have the church. It's really expansive. So it's not one entity that is taking on the response by themselves.
You know,
and
years
integrated.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
The integrated approach allows us to ensure all sectors are accessing whatever needs to be done for the program to move forward.
And the left hand does know what the right hand is doing.
And that's really important.
All right. You know, years ago, I remember HIV and AIDS was like a big thing. You know, people would have a lot to say about it. And then over the years, we've kind of not heard a lot or as much as. So could you highlight for us some of the major activities or campaigns that have been undertaken in recent times by your department?
So I agree. We have been not as vocal as we were in the initial stages when HIV and AIDS was affecting our population much more in the early stage. With the advent of treatment, we have moved more to ensuring that our persons living with HIV have access to care. However, our prevention arm and our enabling environment and human rights arm continues to do work in the background. But I think we're poised at a stage now that we're going to be a little bit more present, more vocal, because we see that there are new infections coming up and within the population that we think that should not be affected in terms of our young people. And we're seeing that through our studies that there has been a drop-off in terms of education and empowerment of persons in terms of knowledge-based for sexual practices. So we as a country, and not just Ministry of Health and Wellness, all sectors need to be involved in not only educating our population, but also in putting in policies, reviewing and updating laws to ensure that persons who are affected and living with HIV are able to access services and access life, I would say, as any other Jamaican.
Yes. And gone are the days when we think that, you know, being diagnosed with HIV or AIDS is a death sentence, you know. I'm interested to hear a little bit about the HIV statistics in relation to the tourism sector and the rest of Jamaica. Can you give us some?
I had a presentation, but I think I'll just share a few slides from it so you can have a visual, if that's okay with you.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, just give me 2 minutes, if so much.
Because those statistics are important, especially since we're not having a lot of noise being made about HIV, AIDS, but it is still happening in much the same way we think that, as the man in the street says, COVID still a keep.
Yes, COVID keeping and
HIV and AIDS still a keep. So
still a keep. So in Jamaica, I mean, we have a general prevalence of just about 1.4% of our population having HIV, and it is estimated that in Jamaica, based on our UNAIDS estimates, that we have 32,000 persons living with HIV. Of this amount, 14% of them do not know their status. So they have not been diagnosed. And we've had several studies, and we know we have pinpointed populations that have a higher prevalence of HIV within their communities. And those are persons who would have had previous sexually transmitted infections, or female sex workers, or men who have sex with men, or prison inmates, and or homeless persons. But what we have seen is that between 2010 and coming into 2020, things have changed for some populations. So while we have had a general decrease in the general population, we're seeing where we have our transgender women or men who have sex with men are still maintaining a high prevalence within that community. And we're seeing a slight increase in our homeless persons as well as our inmates. Of note, our female sex workers are doing well. The prevalence has dropped significantly from the 1990s. And this really is as a result of a lot of work that was done in engaging this population in the early stages of the epidemic, and a continued engagement of this group. But what really I want to focus on, and I'm just going to skip some of these slides so we can really look at the tourism belt, as we call it.
Yes.
So when we look at the number of cases in Jamaica, St. James is the #1 parish that has the most cases per 100,000 population. So in terms of population density, St. James leads, followed by Kingston and St. Andrew, then St. Anne, Westmoreland, Trelawney, and Hanover. And you can see that in terms of or tourism or parishes that have high tourist engagement, that they are the top 6. And this is of importance when we look at the map, which gives you really how it looks. This is at the end of 2018, where most cases were seen in Kingston and St. Andrew and St. James. And then looking at just for 2018, the new cases that came up, St. James, Trelawney, Westmoreland, and Kingston and St. Andrew were the focus. But when we look at 2020, for the cases reported in 2020, what really stood out for us at the national level was that St. Anne came on board as another parish that was stepping up in terms of the number of cases reported in 2020, that really had more persons being reported from St. Anne. And again, all the dark areas,
yes,
in terms of Westmoreland, St. James, St. Anne, Trelawney. Kingston and St. Andrew is a little pale now, but we're still waiting on some information to come in to really see if it really is so for Kingston and St. Andrew. But when you look at the northern parishes, you can see the impact of HIV cases within the tourism sector. So I'll stop sharing now, so you can I hope I've given you
yes. These are some interesting statistics, because when I look at the ranking, I'm seeing resort destination area. A lot of people don't see Kingston and St. Andrew as a resort, but it is a resort destination, being the entertainment capital of not just Jamaica, but of the Caribbean. So it is one of our resort areas. And I'm looking at St. James, which is perhaps, that's the Montego Bay impact there. St. Anne, that's an interesting figure, with them jumping up to 46 point something. And then, of course, Westmoreland, we've got Negril there, Trelawney, we know what's happening along that stretch from Falmouth going up, and of course Hanover, which is also part of the Negril area. And the prevalence among men who are having sex with men, and transgender women, and those persons who are perhaps homeless on the street into drugs and stuff, that's also, it's alarming.
It's alarming, but it gives us an opportunity to do something about it.
So
And,
what can we do about it? What's the call to action to the persons who are working, for example, in the tourism sector and just generally across Jamaica and in respect of HIV/AIDS?
So in respect of HIV/AIDS and a call to the general population, it's really two things. One, you really need to enable and empower yourself with the knowledge of HIV, how it is transmitted, and what it is you need to do for yourself as well as your family and community to protect you from HIV, but also to enable the persons who are living with HIV to live positively.
Yes.
And I think Joan will speak to that a little bit more when you engage her.
Yes, yes.
Because it is in that setting with you as a person and us within our families and communities that we will now impact the wider scope of the country, because it has to start with us as persons.
Yes.
When I look at our different ministries, we have to look at our workplace policies and ensure that we have an enabling environment for persons living with HIV or persons who are affected with HIV, and that the stigma and discrimination that is associated with HIV is stemmed, is stopped, is gotten rid of within Jamaica. So creating that environment that persons can live and be free to discuss their sexual practices, discuss their sexual preferences, so that they can be guided in terms of their risk assessment,
yes,
and their prevention strategies, because their services provided for them, but persons, one, may not be aware, or two, don't want to be associated with those services because of the possible stigma and discrimination associated with it. So I think those are the two main things: one, as a person; two, as entities, to ensure that we have the enabling environment. I think within the Ministry of Health and Wellness, we are open to provide any services through our regional health authorities, and within the HIV program from our civil society organizations, to aid or guide companies to ensure that they have a setting that can enable our persons within Jamaica to be aware of HIV, sexual practices, sexual health, so that the right messages is given, as well as they can make informed decisions.
All right, there's so much more to talk about, but I think I was just being given the wrap-up signal, all right, Debbie? All right, so I think I just have enough time to perhaps ask one other question, and at the same time to ask my chat room monitor if there is any question or any comments in the chat that she could share with us. And until we hear from her, I'd like for you to just say to us briefly, what exactly is HIV, AIDS, and STI? Could you just quickly differentiate for us?
No problem. So HIV is the human immunodeficiency virus. So it's a virus. AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So HIV is a virus, and if the virus gets out of hand, so to speak, within your body and attacks your immune system, you become vulnerable, and then you move on to AIDS. So AIDS is somebody who has HIV who now has the inability to fight infection.
Yes. So you've gone to another stage.
You've gone to another stage.
In the infection. And the STIs?
STIs are sexually transmitted infections, and there are several. There's syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, any infection you can get from sexual intercourse.
And how do you get HIV?
So
because there's still myths, I believe,
So HIV is really transferred from sexual practices, mainly in Jamaica. There is a very small, I'm almost saying minute population that would get it from mother to child transmission. And that is something that the Ministry of Health and Wellness is working towards stemming to continue that prevention of mother to child transmission. But it is primarily gotten from sexual intercourse.
Right. So my friend who is on a sexual sabbatical is not likely to get it because she is not active.
Not likely to get it.
All right. Do we have any questions in the chat?
Yes, we do.
Yes, please go ahead, Sandra.
We have a question from Georgia Robinson from the Zoom platform. She's asking, the increase of the virus among inmates is significant. Any indication as to what is the cause for such a rise?
Well, as I said, there are two possible reasons. One, we have done more testing within our prisons based on screening modalities that our prevention team has engaged the prisons with going forward, and that's probably one of the reasons why there is a rise, because it wasn't a routine activity prior. And secondly, it really could be because people are engaging in sexual practices in the prisons, and there may be some transfer within there. So it is something that needs to be investigated a little bit further before we make any assumptions with what is going on in the prisons.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rob Allen. I have a quick question, though, because we do have some goodie bags and we want to sort of mix it up this morning, get the information in, but give away some Christmas goodies. And my question says, what does the abbreviation HIV mean? And you have no excuse because Doctor just gave us the answer. So what does the abbreviation HIV mean? And how is HIV primarily transmitted? So those are the two questions we're going to take at this time. How is HIV primarily transmitted? And what does the abbreviation HIV mean? Any more questions, Sandra?
Yes, we had another one from Facebook. The question is, how do I test a formula I suspect can cure HIV/AIDS?
Wow.
Wow, I think that's beyond my scope right now. But I will definitely follow up on that, because there are studies that are being done. We have not, internationally, HIV is not on the back burner. There are still studies in terms of finding a cure for HIV, and also in decreasing what we call the pill burn, because initially people were taking up to 16 pills a day when they were diagnosed with HIV, and we're down to 1 pill a day, and injectables are being looked at, vaccines are being looked at. So the research is still quite alive in terms of HIV, and we're hoping one day there will be a cure. And I think the work will continue to be done. If you think you have a cure, contact me. I'll try and put you on to the right person.
Please give us a contact, Doc. So
I'll send it to you. So
okay, so we'll make a note of the person in the chat who has been posing that particular question. Any answers to my questions for the goodie bags?
Yes, we have an answer from Tarak. Tarak answered the first question. What does HIV mean? And he has human immunodeficiency virus.
Yes, that is correct. And please make a note of that name so that we can arrange for the goodie bags to be delivered. And the second question?
We have another answer, but that one does not seem to be the answer that we're looking for.
Well, give us nonetheless. Let's see.
It is transmitted in the blood, and HIV stands for human immunodeficiency virus. That is from Natasha Thomas.
Transmitted in the blood? Doc, would you give that one correct? I'm thinking that it's transmitted through unprotected vaginal or anal sex.
That's the answer. But you just gave them the answer.
Right. So because we run out of time, so I'm giving the answer just the same.
Okay.
Well, Nicola Richards had said it's transmitted from someone who has a virus to another person.
But how? Suppose I just hug you up.
Exactly.
Or suppose the mosquito bite you and then come and bite me. I don't get it that way. Right, Doc?
No, you can't. You cannot at all.
So those are not the answers we're looking for.
All right. So as we wrap up, we're going to just ask you to just give us a final word, Doc, on what are the symptoms that are associated with HIV/AIDS?
So in the initial stages, when a person is infected, they may have general symptoms that are like the flu. So you may have malaise, even flu-like symptoms, diarrhea, and this normally happens within the first 2 weeks of contracting the virus. After that, there are no symptoms. Persons are asymptomatic. until they progress to AIDS. So somebody with HIV looks extremely normal. They don't look sick. They don't
Yes.
have rashes. They don't have anything. So you really can't tell by looking at a person that they have HIV or not. Additionally, once persons are on their medication and are what we call virally suppressed, they're much more healthier than you and I in some instances, especially if they have no non-communicable diseases and they're able to live a normal lifespan as long as they're virally suppressed. So HIV, one, is not a death sentence, and two, there are medications available for you to live a normal life once you are diagnosed with HIV and be monitored within the public and private setting.
All right. Thank you so much, so much, Dr. Alicia Robb Allen. There's a lot more to talk about, but we're going to have to put in the chat some information about how persons can get tested and get counseled and some redress. Thank you for joining us this morning, and we hope you'll stay with us for the duration. It has been our pleasure.
Same here. Thank you for having me.
And we have a little clip to share with you at this time.
And I'm here to tell you that living with HIV is not a death sentence. It's estimated that 32,000 Jamaicans are living with HIV, but less than half of these people are reported to be in treatment. Issues with disclosure, lack of support, fear of stigma, and discrimination are some of the things preventing people living with HIV from accessing treatment. The support you may need to come and stay in care is available at JN+. Get the help you need. Come to care.
Our next guest is our own Ricky Pascoe. We're going to be talking with him about the impact of HIV and AIDS on the tourism sector. He's the HIV/AIDS Program Officer for the Tourism Products Development Company Limited, TPDCO. And his responsibilities include providing information on a range of topics, including HIV and AIDS issues, as well as acting as the point person for the organization. He's the lead facilitator for workshops on issues of AIDS and HIV. And Mr. Pascoe is also the Ministry of Tourism TPDCO representative for Jamaica's Country Coordinating Mechanism, which is a committee that oversees the implementation of the Global Fund Grant. The Global Fund Grant, or the Global Fund, makes smart, effective investments in the fight against HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria through a unique partnership-based funding model. Formerly an information officer at TPDCO, Mr. Pascoe started work in HIV in 1995 when he became involved with the Jamaican network of seropositives, JN+. For 3 consecutive periods, he has served as president for the JN+, a position he currently holds. And for the past 2 decades, he has also been involved in local, regional, and international committees, counseling groups, and research activities intended to increase awareness of HIV/AIDS and eliminate stigma. Mr. Pascoe, I know you're excited to be here this morning, and it's my pleasure to have you on our webinar. Hi, Ricky.
Good morning, Marlene. Good morning, viewers. Good morning, all. How are you all doing?
And how are you doing, Ricky?
I'm good. I'm a bit tired, but I'm good otherwise. I am excited about this. It's the day that we have planned for. I'm really looking forward to jump into it to say my little bit and move on with the next steps.
I know you're excited, Ricky. And I want for you to highlight the purpose of the TPDCO HIV program and some of its objectives.
So the program we have here at TPDCO that we're implementing within the tourism sector started as way back in 2002. At that time, we were mandated by the Ministry of Health at the time to do HIV work within the tourism sector, because in those years, really it was discovered that HIV was an issue, or is still an issue, within the tourism sector. We do it because the reality is we have some of the workers within the sector that we call they're mobile. They may move from one parish, let's say the tourism belt, let's talk about the western side. They may move from, let's say, Trelawney to let's say, St. James, because those parishes are close proximity. But the reality is, while they're moving, because they're moving for better opportunities, so while they're moving, it's a possibility that they might be having sex. And being having sex, then naturally, once HIV is present, HIV may, to some extent, transmit. The other side to it as well is that within the sector, there's some amount of opportunities. So as humans, people may do things to get by. One of the things that people may do, possibility, is possibly have sex to get by. We call it transactional sex. So that may be a possibility that exists amongst people, that they might be, and once you're having sex, once you're exchanging sex for gifts, favors, or monies, then naturally that person who is the receiver lose all their bargaining powers at that point. So if I'm offering that favor or those funds, I will determine what happens within that transaction. And it may be a possibility that I may be transmitting HIV because HIV might be present. We also do it because we want to assist the Ministry of Health with the reduction of HIV within the sector itself, and by extension the entire Jamaica, as well as a reduction of stigma and HIV-related stigma and discrimination, because that still exists. We're still having issues as it relates to people living with HIV and being shunned, being employed, especially as it relates to food. Many of us still believe that if I'm HIV positive, I should not be preparing food, I should not be handling foods. If we bring it to the sector, you may find that people within the sector may think that a chef should not be handling food, should not be cooking. So those
which leads me, Ricky, to the question, or a two-part question. Which department in TPDCO oversees the program, and are there, why did TPDCO feel the need to even just create this program?
So the department that currently oversees I backtrack a bit. Originally, the program was under the licensing unit. At that time, licensing was also under the product quality department.
Okay, and now it has been separated.
Now it has been separated. Now it has been transferred to the training arm of TPDCO, which is training unit. Now, so we incorporate and implement a lot of the HIV work within the trainings that we do within TPDCO or offer, for instance. And of course, training is under product quality. And so, for instance, within Team Jamaica, within our tour guide, Team Jamaica and tour guide programs or customer service programs, then we offer the information through those programs.
So it is infused in all of TPDCO's training programs.
Yes, including from HR as well, because when HR is doing orientation for workers, then we do that as well.
Okay. So share with us some activities that are undertaken by TPDCO under your HIV awareness program.
So some of the activities, one of the main ones is that, for instance, we assist or we facilitate people within the sector getting their HIV and syphilis test done. So for instance, if a property calls us, or they sometimes will call the direct to the Ministry of Health, or let me talk about the regional health authorities. So if they call me, I will reach out to regional health authorities. I may reach out to Jamaica AIDS Support for Life. I may reach out to Children's First. In previous years, we may reach out to Jamaica Red Cross as well, because those entities offer testing for HIV. And then they'll go in, do it within their, especially if it's a large property, do it within their health and wellness fairs. One of the other things we do is sessions around basic stuff around how HIV is transmitted. Because many of us take it for granted that HIV not keep, HIV still a keep, the reality, but COVID kind of kick out everything, but HIV still a keep. Because the reality is sex still a keep. So once sex still a keep, people will still be having sex, and HIV will transmit it, especially if it's unprotected sex. So then we always have to go around to the properties. Now we're doing a lot of virtual stuff to sensitize, to give the information in relation to basic stuff, how HIV is transmitted, how to prevent yourself from getting HIV. Another thing that we do as well, can't really speak more on this, is that the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, they had revised their Occupational Health and Safety Act to include HIV. So it's going to be mandatory once it is passed, or once the act is passed,
yes,
for workplaces to develop their own HIV and AIDS workplace policies. So we within TPD, we may reach out to the tourism entities to prepare them. You know, we don't want people to be caught off guard when the law is in place. So we have conversations with them so that they can, our consultation, so that they can start the development of their workplace policies, HIV workplace policies, within their own workplaces, because we encourage them to, it has to be built to suit the culture of the organization, because we know each entities have their own cultures. So those are some of the main things that we do.
Okay, well, when we get to talking with Conrad, I think he'll get a little bit more into the workplace policy and what the government is doing in respect of the act. But when you go to these groups, I'm assuming, and I believe I'm correct, that you are targeting tourism entities across all the resort areas.
Yes.
But tell me some of the things that you're sharing with these groups when you go in. I know I usually see you walking around with your condom case and your penises and your female condom and all kinds of paraphernalia, Ricky. So just give us a little insight in what exactly you're talking to these persons about.
So if I'm doing a basic facts presentation, as I said earlier, it's all about telling people how it is transmitted. It is also all about doing my demonstrations. I'll do the condom demonstrations. I'll do the male condom demonstration, the female. I'll also do the dental dam. And you know, for the dental dam, sorry, I didn't have it to show, but for the dental dam, we know it is really a little piece of device that is used for oral sex, and it's really to prevent people, because we know HIV and our other STIs can be transmitted while they're doing oral sex, even though it is low risk. So we'll get into those types of conversation, and it's always a sex conversation, because we usually even ask people to give me some street names.
Yes, I hear you asking how many names, and people coming up with all kinds of names, some names that I've never heard before.
Right. So you'd be surprised of some of the things that people, and some of the myth that people still holding on to.
Give me one of those myths.
So
other than the one that says if you are going to have sex with a virgin, all of these infections will be cured.
So one of the myths I've heard is that people will say, if I stand up in the water and have sex, I can't get HIV. Another one, I remember in Negril, at a particular hotel in Negril, and one of the young men tell us that him know every woman with a disease, because if him not get an erection for the woman, it means the woman have a disease. So you know the entire room rail up, because so it's type of information. And whenever I go, I remember going to Beaches Negril, and they put me on a platform to do the demonstrations. And this was not just for the workers. They had it for the community, the environment. And I tell you, the amount of people stand up when we go up on that podium to do my demonstration, especially for the dental dam, Place Europe. People come after asking me if I don't have any to give. Luckily, I have some. So I handed it to them.
So it was because of the demand.
Yes, they were there.
All right, Ricky, let us stick a pin and move on quite swiftly, because I see Miss Debbie giving me a time check. Sure. Tell me about some of the organizations that TPDCO has partnered with over the years, or one or two, and how. What have you?
For implementation?
Yes.
So we have always partnered with the Ministry of Health is our main partner, really. They have been the first partner for us when they were giving us funding. The regional health authorities, especially the ones on the, let's say, the western side, Western Regional Health Authority, Northeast Regional Health Authority, yes, those that are pretty much on the tourism belt, somewhat the southern as well, and southeast. We also partner with Jamaica Aid Support for Life. We partner with Jamaica Network of Seropositives. We partner with Jamaica Red Cross back then when they had an HIV program. We partner with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. When we talk about the tourism entities done, we have always partnering with JISTV. We have all, and not just JISTV, but all the other entities, most of the other entities, especially the major ones within the industry, because you have to have the buy-in from the tourism side. Because if I want to go into, let's say, a standards, I will have to start the conversation with their managers, with their owners, with their GMs, in order to go in for that buy-in. So the partnership as it relates to the tourism sector is important. And I'll talk about it with JHTA. because you know they have a reach. So the partnership right there is also important.
That's crucial because touching JHT, you're touching all of its members.
Right.
How does HIV/AIDS impact tourism? That is what our theme is about. And I know our ministry is firm in what it's doing, and I want to just hail Denton Edwards, who I believe is online at this time. They have an overarching responsibility, even though TPDCO is now doing some of this implementation. So how does it really impact tourism?
So it really impacts tourism. One of the reasons. Tourism employs a lot of young people. At that age group, persons, you're still within that working age group. You're working. So it impacts because if people are getting ill, let's say people are infected and there's no care, there's no, how would I put it, there's no education, there's no prevention, stuff that is happening. People may be spreading HIV, people may becoming ill, and when people become ill, it's a possibility that persons may not be able to work, and you may lose, because if I get up sudden this morning and say that I can't come to work because I'm ill, so you may lose that productivity of that worker because it really affects. It's not just a health issue. It really affects it. So we want people to look at it as a developmental issue. It affects all areas. And if you don't pay attention, then you lose that opportunity in terms of the workforce. And we know the workforce are important people to look at and focus on.
Tell me a little bit, Ricky, about the tourism policy on HIV in the workplace and its purpose.
So our tourism policy for HIV, and is within the tourism sector really, we had developed one that was developed as way back as in, I think, 2007. We had developed that, and these were when we were having or getting funding or resources from the Ministry of Health. So this was developed to assist the tourism entities or the tourism sector in developing their own HIV and AIDS workplace policies. This also have the 10 core principles, the ILO 10 core principles that really generate what the policy is all about. Because, for instance, it talks about non-screening. One of the principles talks about non-screening of HIV for whether you want to employ the individual, whether you want to give them a promotion, or whether you want to give them other types of benefits that exist within the workplace. It talks about social dialogue. It talks about gender equality, because we know that we in Jamaica, some of us as humans, as men really, we are still viewing women as not worth, pretty much. So we want it to be discussed openly amongst men and women. We want to talk about non-discrimination as well. So it talks about some of those core things that can and will occur within the workplace. So this is the book form that we have. We have also put it on CD.
Is that available on our, is there a link on our website?
Unfortunately
not yet. Yes.
And that we have developed a DVD. I'm sure you're showing one of the DVDs currently. We have developed, this is the same HIV/AIDS policy DVD. So we have developed this from the policy. And I must add though,
so Ricky, one of the things that we really should be doing as well at TPDCO is to ensure that we get this information available, because knowledge is power.
Yes.
And in a situation like this where, you know, people need to know, there's a lot of misinformation that's still out there.
Yes,
and I think that is something that I will personally take on to see how we can get it on our TPDCO website and available to everyone.
That's important.
Yes. All right. How can organizations or individuals access more information on the program, request training, and access other resources from TPDCO?
So they can always reach out to us at TPDCO. We have our offices in most of the tourism areas. We have an office in Mandeville. We have an office in Negril. We have an office in Montego Bay. There's an office in Portland, Ocho Rios, and Trelawney, right?
Well, Falmouth is Trelawney,
right?
No? Yes.
And of course, Kingston, where our corporate office exists. You can always reach out to them, to us there. You can always reach out to me directly as the HIV/AIDS program officer, and my contact is 876-581-1433. So you can always reach out to me.
Say those numbers again, Ricky.
So that's 876-581-1433.
And of course, we also have our public email, which is letasknow@tpdco.org.
Right.
Let us know at tpdco.org. Feel free to drop us a line and we will take it from there.
Right. And as well, I must add as well to Marlene, some of the partners that we have been working with over the years, even the regional health authorities, the NGOs, they can also, because if you reach to them, they can also reach to me as well, because especially the regional health authorities, I've been working with them since the inception, really. So once a property reach out to them, they'll usually reach out to me as well to say, hey, we're going in, this is what we're going to be doing, so we can always do those partnerships as well.
Yes. Well, I'm happy you didn't walk with any of your oversized penises today.
No, this is
Ricky,
not a forum for it.
Because I know that, I know it's the size it is because you want it to be visible when you're doing the demonstrations.
Right.
But, dear Jesus.
Not the forum.
Allow me to ask Sandra if there is a question or a comment or anything in the chat. We would like to have you answer that at this time. Is there anything for us, Sandra?
Yes, there is a question from Nicola Richards. In what way does TPDCO work with the churches?
The reality is, though, I must add, let's take, for instance, if there is, I'll use one of the properties, for instance, let's say sandals. So while TPDCO don't work with the churches, directly, they may come in because if one of the properties, one of the hotels is having an HIV-related activity, either within the geographical area of the property, then the church can become involved in that directly because it's within the community. Churches are within the community, so they'll be able to come in directly within that space because the reality is churches are also form a part of the tourism belt. Churches are everywhere in Jamaica. They're in the tourism areas. So once a property is having any activity as it relates to HIV, then the churches can come in there. The churches can always partner because churches can offer counseling. Churches can offer, or would I say? They can offer counseling. Sometimes those churches may have even activities themselves. So there's a partnership there. And you have some churches who may operate some amount of, how would I put it, clinics.
Yes.
To some extent. They can also operate, some of them operate, they may give out food packages or other care packages that people may benefit from. So there's a partnership right there. And churches have reached to other medical professionals, the doctors, the nurses, the psychologists, the social workers.
But
so
the truth is you can also leverage their support and the resources that they have within the churches.
Yes, yes.
Whether it is for counseling, psychology, because we know it is important to have your pre-counseling and the counseling that will have to come after a diagnosis.
Right.
And it's not only single people who are prone to HIV/AIDS. You have married women, married men in the church, out of the church, that are affected.
Oh, yes.
And
most
so
definitely.
we have to be holistic and we have to be open enough, I believe, to have the conversations and to make sure that the important and correct information is shared so people are empowered to take the next step.
And quickly, though, and the reality is, though, Marlene,
Can I throw out my question and then you tell me what the reality is? All right, stick up in. I have some questions and I have my little goodie bags here that I need to give away. So I am going to throw a few questions in and then you can tell me what the reality is, Ricky. So my question, which department of the TPDCO oversees the HIV program? Which department of TPDCO oversees the HIV program? And which resort area has the highest rates of infection? Which resort area has the highest rate of infection? I believe this other answer, the answer to the next question, would have come out in the discourse with Dr. Rob Allen earlier on. What age group is most impacted by HIV/AIDS? Which age group is most impacted by HIV/AIDS? So you see, I have 3 questions, 3 goodie bags, and then you can tell us. We can come back to you now, Ricky.
No, what I was saying really is the fact that the question about the partnership and churches, the reality is as TPDCO, I don't think we are we welcome all partnerships. That's a given because the reality is, as it relates to HIV and AIDS, everything connects. We had said it earlier that it affects all areas, all sectors. So when you look at it, really everything everywhere connects. So if the churches decide that they want to do something in relation to HIV within the tourism sector, and they reach out to us, then we are always willing to partner with that church to ensure that we do the core work. That because the reality is, some of these congregants, the people within the churches, they're also tourism workers. So that's where the Olympic may come in terms of the partnership there as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ricky. Sandra, do we have any winners to any of those three questions? The department in TPDCO, which oversees the HIV program.
Yes.
Which resort has the highest rate? Do you have answers to all those questions?
Well, we have a winner for two of the answers. Nicola Richards on the Zoom platform, the answer to the first question, the training unit, and the answer to the second question, St. James. I have not seen a response to the third question.
Which age group is most impacted by HIV/AIDS here in Jamaica? All right. Well, we will go back to the chat for a possible correct answer. But for now, Ricky, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for being here this morning. And I want to encourage you to continue to do the work that you have been doing. We appreciate it. And I know the persons that you serve, they appreciate it as well. We'll see you a little later when we talk a little bit about the sandal story. And right now we have a little something to share with our viewers on living positively.
Thanks for having me.
We trim all type of hair, short hair, long hair, or even some pepper green. When I just see here when I trim, I see people. So if a man tests positive for HIV, that don't affect the price of my trimming. I treat people with respect. One thing we know, a man not worry about nothing when he sit down on my barber chair. Whether HIV positive or not, we're going to treat you with the same love and respect. Live positively.
If you're just joining us, welcome to TPDCO's HIV webinar. Our theme is HIV and tourism, how one impacts the other. Up next is another special guest, Conrad Saunders. He has been involved in Jamaica's HIV response since 2008, where he started out as a volunteer at the Jamaica Business Council on HIV and AIDS, JABCHA. Mr. Saunders then went on to become the administrative officer at JABCHA, where he assisted member companies with the development of their HIV policies and programs. In 2012, he joined the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, MLSS, as the administrative officer in the HIV unit of the Occupational Safety and Health Department upon the promulgation of the National Workplace Policy on HIV and AIDS to further reduce stigma and discrimination associated with HIV in the workplace. As the admin officer in the HIV unit, Mr. Saunders assisted VCP enrolled companies with the development of HIV workplace policies and programs, was a part of a team that conducted HIV audits of VCP enrolled companies, and made HIV and VCP related presentations at workshops coordinated by the unit. Mr. Saunders is now project coordinator within the HIV unit of the MLSS as a project coordinator, where the scope of his work has increased to include the coordinating of interventions with labour officers, workers, representatives, and employers with an aim to strengthen the legal framework for providing redress for persons living with HIV, PL-HIV. These persons would have experienced discrimination in the workplace. He's the lead auditor when conducting HIV audits and reviews companies' HIV policies to ensure conformity to the National Workplace Policy on HIV and AIDS. Mr. Saunders, the pleasure is mine to welcome you. Good morning, and before you even get into it, I want you to tell me what is VCP.
VCP is a voluntary compliance program where the minute was launched in
just to make sure we're all on the same page. Voluntary compliance program. All right. So now we can say morning and greet each other.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. So let me just expand on that. Through this vehicle, the VCP, the ministry assists companies with the development of their HIV policies and programs.
Yes.
in order to meet the requirements of the pending occupational safety and health.
All right. So I want you to begin by telling me about the services and the responsibilities of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
The ministry provides a myriad of services and responsibilities as it relates to promoting and maintaining an effective and efficient and harmonious labor market. That is characterized by decent work and provides social services to most vulnerable individuals, to the most vulnerable, not to most, to the most vulnerable individuals in the society. The ministry has two arms, a labor division and a social security division. The labor division, some of the services are local and overseas employment or job placements, granting of work permits, industrial relations services to promote harmonious work, occupational safety and health services to promote safe and healthy work environments. That's just a few of them. And the social security arm, we provide benefits to contributors to the NIS program, example, pension benefits, employment injury benefits, widows and widowers pensions. We provide benefits under the public assistance department, like PATH, National Council for Senior Citizens, the Early Stimulation Program, Jamaica Council for Disabilities, the Abilities Foundation Program, that's just the name of it. Okay. Under the social security.
All right, so it's wide-ranging and
very. We have an office.
There are two sides of the coin as well. So what is the objective of the Occupational Health and Safety Department, and how does it link to the National Workplace Policy on HIV/AIDS?
All right. The primary objective of the OSH department, OSH, Occupational Safety and Health, is to encourage, promote, and maintain world-class occupational safety and health protection for all workers in Jamaica. This is achieved by providing technical guidance and advocacy for enactment of safety legislation that accords with international standards. And as you know, how the world is now, we have to meet international standards in most things that we do. Assisting organizations in developing and implementing robust OSH management systems, and conducting effective surveillance of workplaces to ensure compliance with existing safety and health legislation. The National Workplace Policy takes into consideration the negative effects of the illness on the most productive segment of society, as Dr. Rob alluded to. And you spoke about the most affected. I think the latest statistics spoke to the age range 15 to 24 as the range that is most affected, new infections.
Okay, there's the answer to the question I asked earlier on.
and these persons are persons who are about to or have just transitioned into the workforce. So they need to be able to work and support themselves and their family. HIV is one pill a day in most instances now. People are living long, healthy lives with HIV. So they need to be able to support themselves and their family. Ricky spoke to the 10 key principles. That's the pillar. Those are the pillars that the National Workplace Policy stand on. They are non-discrimination. We spoke to them, social dialogue, non-screening. And these are the recommendations from the ILO for the management of HIV in workplaces.
The workplace. Let's sort of zoom in a little bit on the National Workplace Policy on HIV and AIDS. Tell us a little bit about that. Just briefly describe it, and tell us when this policy was implemented, and maybe some of the, a few of the objectives of the
policy was approved as a green paper in 2010. And in 2012, it was approved as a white paper. It became a policy in 2012. It was approved by both houses of parliament. Mm-hmm. Implementation was robust. We had ads. We went into companies. And through the VCP, as I spoke, we engaged companies. They enrolled. We helped them with the development of their policies, their programs. To date, we have, I think, nearly 500 companies who have enrolled, and some companies are still in the development stages of their policies. Some companies have developed their policies already. But the policy is a framework for government employers and workers to deal effectively with HIV and AIDS in the workplace. It assists with the development of a caring, supportive, and responsive work environment that will protect all workers.
I was about to ask who is protected under the policy, but you just answered the question. All workers.
All workers. And it is intended to be a part of a legal enforceable mechanism that will inform regulations. So it is expected to inform regulations that will be appended to the occupational safety.
What would you say are some of the benefits of this policy, particularly to somebody who's living with HIV/AIDS?
It directly tackles stigma and discrimination. It directly tackles stigma and discrimination.
Give me an example. Say I'm here at TPDCO and I am due for a promotion or something. Sounds nice, not true. But
so the policy is not legislation. It's just guidance.
Right, but it's guidance. But suppose somebody, suppose my status is that I'm positive, and somehow that gets to HR, and HR decides, well, I think we want to have Marlene take on this role right now because she is HIV positive. Is there any bite in that policy, any sort of that could prevent that from happening?
Yeah, man. And Ricky alluded to it. It speaks to non-screening for the purposes of promotion, employment, remuneration. So it discourages may not be the wrong word, but it helps companies to understand that HIV does not stop you from working, or should not stop you from working, being promoted, being sent on training, all the things that are afforded to any other employee. What we're saying, don't treat HIV differently. Anything that is afforded to workers who are unwell, you afford the same thing to workers who have HIV. Treat it right across the board equally. Not better, not worse, just the same.
Yes. You mentioned that we have some 500 companies that are already enrolled, and you are, I'm sure, working assiduously to get more companies on board here in Jamaica. What are some of the ways that employers are presently integrating the policy in their organizations, in their businesses? How are you seeing it play out?
As Dr. Rob alluded to, Jamaica has one HIV response. And though the Ministry of Labour is responsible for the workplace response, when we reach out to companies, it is always an integrated approach. Up to yesterday, I was in Manchester with Ricky, where we were engaging companies around the management of HIV in the workplace. So companies are encouraged to provide a budget World AIDS Day was a few days ago.
Yes.
So a lot of companies had their health fairs where persons could get tested, know their status. Persons could they invite different from the response to come in and do presentations, things like that. They have that's their program that we assist them with, their active programs. I can give you an example of what one company did many years ago. And this is a prevention program where they would, for your payslip package that you get your payslip in a little envelope, there would be a myth buster or fact reinforcement in the urinal in the mailbox when there was a sign above the urinal that read, winning the fight against the spread of HIV and AIDS is in your hand. The key to winning if you can understand, the key to winning the fight against the spread of HIV and AIDS is in your hand.
That's quite an appropriate place to place that.
Innovative ways to encourage or to spread the word, to reinforce facts and to dispel myths.
How can impacted individuals access this policy?
The policy is online and it's on the ministry's website. It's on the National Library website. They can engage the Ministry of Labour through the HIV unit. So it is online. It is accessible. It is accessible.
It is accessible. And what would you say to organizations, workplaces that are perhaps joining us this morning, listening in through their representatives? What word of advice would you give to them in respect of this policy, which is so important and which acts as a guide for organizations and how to treat women?
I encourage the companies of these 500 companies, I should say that some companies independent of the Ministry of Labour develop their own policy and program, but they would then engage the ministry to say, are we in line with what we should have? Where are we? Where should we?
Yes.
I mean, I encourage companies to engage the Ministry of Labour, enroll in the VCP program where we can assist you with the development of our policies and program, because at the end of the day, you will have to do it. It will be mandated at the end of the day. Earlier in one of your ads, you spoke about a life-threatening illness that the ministry has. That is internal, but we're also encouraging companies. You don't have to have a standalone HIV policy. It can be included in a life-threatening illness policy to say, this is how we manage any health conditions within our space.
All right, so as we wrap up, in a nutshell, what would you say is the main purpose of the National Workplace Policy on HIV and AIDS, in a nutshell?
Is to just ensure that everybody is treated fairly in the workplace. In a nutshell, just to ensure that everyone is treated fairly in the workplace. No discrimination against persons living with HIV. I should say that people are living long, healthy lives with HIV, one pill a day in most instances, so they need to be afforded the opportunity to work and protect themselves, work and support themselves and their families.
Yes. Thank you so much, Conrad Saunders. Don't you move a muscle. I heard Dr. Rob Allen saying earlier on that we moved from 16 pills a day down to one pill. And I didn't get a chance to ask her about the treatment, the antiretrovirals. And I think before we end this morning, we'd love to get that information in. What exactly is an antiretroviral medication? But let me ask some questions so we can give away some Spruce Up Jamaica goodie bags. And my question is this. When was the National Workplace Policy on HIV/AIDS established? You gave us some different dates earlier on, and I hope we don't have them mixed up. But I know you said it became a green paper, 2010. And a white paper, 2012, which means at that point it would have become active. Yes. And there was another date. I think that's the date they're asking for. So when was the National Workplace Policy on HIV/AIDS established? And if I may find another question, that's an easy question, which you answered earlier on. What is the main purpose of the policy? And you can put it in the chat in your own words. We will interpret it to make sure we get the essence of the purpose of the policy. And you spoke about it, and Ricky spoke about it as well. And I think this should be an easy one. Which guiding principles were used in developing the policy? Which guiding principles? You said there were 10 guiding principles. And we need to know where they came from. All right. Sandro, any comments, any questions in the chat for Mr. Saunders?
We don't have any comments right now. We have a response from Davina, but it does not appear to be the response we're looking for. She has 2010 for her response. And the second question, she said, fair treatment for all. Which
would you accept that, Mr. Saunders? Fair treatment for all, the purpose of the policy.
Yes, fair and equal treatment.
Fair and equal treatment. Yeah, but we'll give her the prize.
And we also have Nicola Richards again. She says the main purpose of the policy is to ensure that everyone is treated fairly to end stigma and discrimination. She dressed it up a little.
She dressed it up. All right. So whatever it is, the policy, the main, if we were to put it in a nutshell, I would say to protect the rights of workers regardless of their HIV status. All right, so congratulations to those two ladies. Please make a note so that we can share our goodie bags with them.
Stacey Ann Richards had also said to protect the rights of all Jamaicans, including those who are infected. I think she wanted to say that in not so many words.
All right, we start. We have enough goodie bags. So we have 3 winners. Important thing is that the information is shared, that the information is assimilated, and we know that each one teach one. So we can move on to share that information with our friends and families. And you see, especially this time of year, Christmas, and especially since we now have an extended time for curfew, I know there's going to be a lot of that taking place. And so people need to be armed with the information to ensure that they not only stay safe from COVID-19, but they stay safe from HIV/AIDS. Thank you so much, Conrad Saunders, for being with us this morning. It has really been our pleasure, and we look forward to your feedback at the end of today's program. Now, we have a little something to share with you once again as we encourage you, those persons who are who have a positive status, to live positively.
Human beings, including persons living with HIV, are entitled to basic human rights. The right to health, the right to work, and the right to an adequate standard of living. HIV is not a crime, and we shouldn't treat people living with HIV as if their positive status is a crime. Let us come together as one to show love, support, and kindness. People living with HIV are normal, unique, beautiful, and worthy of love and support. To persons living with HIV, you are more than your HIV status. You have purpose. Continue to enjoy life and live positively.
Sandals celebrates 40 years of love and success this year. They were the first tourism organization to adopt TPDCO's HIV at the workplace policy. Unfortunately, they could not be with us today. But just before we move on, I believe we should have had a poll prior to this segment. And I think if we're able to, we should just take that poll at this time, because we want to hear from you. We want to benefit from your feedback. So before we welcome Ricky Pasco back to talk a little bit about sandals, let's go to our poll, and then we'll come back to sandals, the sandals story. So gentlemen, are we able to launch our poll right now? Okay, the poll is on the screen, and you have a few seconds to do it. All right, go right ahead. And you're seeing the questions on screen. And we thank you for your answers. All right, so thank you so much for your responses. And we were telling you that Sandals this year is celebrating 40 years of love and success. And they were the first tourism organization to adopt TPDCO's HIV at the workplace policy. They couldn't be with us here today, but we do have Ricky Pasco, who has worked with them over the years and who is coming back now to share that Sandals story. So, Sir Ricky, how did Sandals learn about this policy? We're hearing you. Go
Sandals
ahead.
Really, they would have heard about it through the program that we had started as way back in 2002 at TPDCO here. They came on board well right into it. I remember some of the earlier stories. At the time, Horace Peterkin was the champion for us. He back then was the general manager at Sandals, Montego Bay. And it became a passion for him. It became personal to him because he had shared with us that he had a worker at the time, our worker some years ago, and the worker had disclosed that they're HIV positive. And because of that, they had to be caring for the worker, supporting the worker. So it became personal to him, and he was the one who really went ahead, ran with it, and championed the cause within the Sandals group, hence the birth of their HIV program that they have for the group. And I mentioned the group because it's not just one property. It's pretty much for all the tourism entities. And I'm assuming the other organizations they have within the Sandals group. So they have really heard about it and come on board shortly after we started.
So
the
that was
HIV
in
program.
2002?
Right, somewhere thereabouts, right.
Okay. What features of the policy would you say appealed to the Sandals organization?
I think it was more around the parts of where we're caring and supporting people. It's also around the parts of non-discrimination, because they believe in that part of it thoroughly. They also took on the mantle to ensure that their workers, and they are doing this ongoing, that their workers are always sensitized. If there's a new batch of workers, they usually, and if I reach out to them, they usually also reach out. Even if they don't reach out to me directly, they also may reach out to the regional health authorities or even other NGOs who does HIV work. Let's talk about the Jamaica AIDS Support for Life. They also assist them as well. So they're always reaching out to us to ensure that we're there to sensitize, to give information to the staff. They also buy into the whole aspect of getting their workers, or encouraging their workers to get tested for HIV and AIDS, and they're always incorporating that within their HIV, within their health and wellness sphere. One of the quick thing I want to add though is that when they're doing the work though, they don't just do it for their workers. They also do it for geographical, the communities.
Yes.
That
in which they fall.
In which they fall under. So so what they'll do, not necessarily have it on the hotel grounds or the property of the hotel, but they'll have it, let's say, in a battlefield, a field across from, or a community center.
Right, so you're looking at, for example, Sandals Mobe, you could see something taking place at the ball ground in Flankers, and that would include people from Providence Heights and even as far as Coral Gardens. I'm sure everybody could come into that space and participate.
So that's what they do. And they have also have been doing what they call, or what we call, they'll also always link with and are partner with any local radio stations or local television station within their area to also promote the work that they're doing as it relates to HIV and AIDS.
Walk us through the process, Ricky, of implementation of this policy. What would they have done? What was their strategy? So
they would have, I've mentioned some of them, they would have ensured, so for instance, I remember some years ago I went to Beaches Negril. They had invited me there for a week. So I went there. We had organized 2 sets of presentations, sometime in the morning at 10, another in the afternoon at 2. And the strategy was to get the people in an area they call Big Top at Sandals, Negril, at Beaches Negril, for those of us who have been to Beaches Negril. It's an area where they have their main entertainment at nights.
Yes.
So then the aim was to get the workers within that spot. Unfortunately, we weren't getting the numbers that we want because it's voluntary. People weren't mandated to come. So what we had to do was that we had to change that strategy immediately and move shop to the lunchroom or to the lunch area. Because that's where people, once your shift change, once you go to lunch, that's where you pass through.
So if the mountain won't come to Mohammed, then Mohammed has to go to the mountain.
We had to definitely move shop from where we were and take and to what we were doing to the lunch area. One of the things that we had to do as well, and this is some of the things we do everywhere, is that whenever we go in, let's say we go in with any of the regional health authorities or even Jamaica AIDS Support for Life, what they will assist us in doing as well. So you always have to have somebody who we call runner. So that individual will walk the property, give the opportunity to walk the property. If they see one little worker somewhere, they'll say, hey, you know, this is happening. Come and join us.
So it's a walk and talk strategy.
Yes. So,
and we use it in marketing all the time, too, you know. So you're marketing this policy as well when you walk around and you just target different people and say what you have to say and encourage them. It's a means of persuading them to participate.
One of the other main things we do as well, Marlene, within let's say Sandals, is that one of the first things is that we have to get the buy-in. So we reach out to the managers, to the GMs. And one of the things that the GMs will afford us to do is that they'll say, hey, come in and talk to our management team. Start the conversation from there. Because the aim is that once department managers are in the loop, they've bought into what we want to do, then those department managers will always and encourage their workers within their departments to say, buy into this thing. TPDK is coming in to do a program. Let's all show up and get the information that you want to get. So those are some of the strategies that they have been using, and it's still working. And I must say that though a lot of the work is implemented through their environment department. I don't remember the exact name, but their environmental department. That's where a lot of the work or activities that Sandals Properties do, that they implement it through that department, because they're the ones who are organizing the health fairs. They're the ones who are organizing the health talks, right? So
I believe also, Ricky, one of their strategies would have been to participate in Safe Sex Week and World AIDS Day and all of the significant days. They're always planning something around that time and getting their employees and their families and the extended communities involved, which is great, And I remember years ago, Sandals had actually put in place condom vending machines. It was quite a controversial thing at the time, but it was done, and it was a first.
Yes,
and
I would say they were the flagship. They were the first. Just as we're saying, they were the first tourism entity to develop a policy for their workplace. They were the first. When nobody else wanted these condom machines, they were the first that accepted these machines, and of course they placed it in the staff areas of each properties. Yes. Unfortunately, though, that program didn't work because there was a maintenance and issues it didn't work. It didn't because the machines had to be maintained. The machines had to be restocked. There wasn't any full thing in place in relation to who would maintain, because the Ministry of Health had given it to them at the time. So there was not much funding as related to those. So
perhaps it's something that we can revisit and see how it could work, because, you know, that's how it is. You have an idea.
Right.
And you try it, and you try to work out all of the parameters before you go in, but stuff happens, eh?
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Marlene, because I've seen there's an entity right here in Jamaica. They are new to Jamaica pretty much. Not new to the world in doing HIV work, and it's the AIDS Health Foundation, AHF, and they're managed by Dr. Kevin Harvey, who used to be at the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
And they have a condom machine that I went to their office some weeks ago, and I saw that condom machine. So it's one of those manual machines. It's not anything that has to be maintained pretty much. The only maintenance is to restock, because it's one of those machines that you put it's open, you put the condoms in it, and you literally just put your hand in and take them out. So once you have the condoms to restock, so I realized that, and I saw that, and that's something I thought about, that I'm going to possibly reach out back to them to possibly see how best we can get these machines, these type of machines, because they're different type of machines within the industry.
All right, finally, Ricky, I want you to tell me if you believe, and how do you believe, TPDCO's sensitizations and work that we have done has enhanced the Sandals staff?
I do believe, because when I see they're always reaching out, that in itself tells me that there's something that we have been doing, and it's still good, and it's going. So and the reach out, I must say, it's not a one-off reach out. They reach out every earliest day. Sandals reach out to me. Every Safer Sex Week, Sandals reach out to me. And they also reach out because they usually have other types of activities around those, in and between those significant dates. So they're always reaching out to come in and do work within their properties. So that to me is an indication that the program is working for them, that they believe in the program itself, and the fact that they also had really bought into the whole issue of non-discrimination.
Yes.
They had pretty much bought into that. They have little or no tolerance for that, pretty much. They ensure that that is happening. They had also bought into the whole thing of don't test someone for HIV to employ or to promote.
Screening.
No screening. So that's an it tells you, because when you go to one of the Sandals properties to do anything, that welcoming attitude that you get from them, that willingness, that openness, that pleasing attitude that you get from them to do the work, they're always willing. Once me go, they might carry me all over the place, and they might say, look here, me have some little man run at that side there.
Come talk to them.
Come talk to them.
Come show them how the things
show them how things come. We want, even though we know them other things, we want them to do it safely. So those are some of the core things.
You'd be surprised, Ricky, even some simple things as how to properly place a condom is something that has to... You sometimes have to teach it.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Pretty much.
So it may seem very basic to some persons listening in or watching us, but it's something that has to be done.
One last thing, though, Marlene, that I can champion Sandals for as well. I can say some years ago, the Caribbean Alliance, there's the Caribbean Alliance, the Caribbean Alliance for the Caribbean HIV and AIDS Alliance. It's an organization that is based in Trinidad. They were giving HIV some monies to do HIV work within tourism sectors across the Caribbean. Sandals had applied, JISTV did as well, but Sandals had applied for some of those funding, and they got that funding. And they were using, so they had a funded program for themselves within the Sandals group that they were implementing HIV work on their own. They were implementing HIV work to their properties and their workers, even outside of us, TPDCO.
Yes.
But it was grant funding. It didn't meant to last forever.
Didn't last.
But they
That's
right.
for sure.
But they did that, and they were doing that pretty much.
Great. I have some questions for our viewers at this time, and I think they're so easy. When did Sandals adopt the HIV workplace policy? I need the year. And what document did they use to develop their policy? Yes? And if I may ask, well, this one might be a little bit, I don't think it's difficult at all. Name one strategy that Sandals has been using to implement the policy within the properties. So one strategy that Sandals has been using to implement the HIV at the workplace policy within their properties, what document did they use to develop their policy, and when did Sandals adopt the workplace policy? Do we have any questions, any comments from the chat, Sandra?
Yes, we do. We have one question from Nicola Richards. She's asking, how do you get a partner, even though married for years, to use a condom, as they feel it's not the same thing when they use the condom, when it comes to prevention of HIV?
How do you get a partner that you've had for many years to use a condom?
Yes, what can you do to convince?
What can you do to convince them? Because Ricky will tell you that the men complain that it just don't feel the same. The women complain that it itches. And you have all kinds of pushback. So since you're the expert with this thing, Ricky, over to you.
The reality is, what I usually tell people as relates to that, because it's human behavior, and behavior change, we talk about the fact that doesn't happen overnight. And if as a woman, for instance, you're in a relationship and you know your man, say, if you go home tonight because you go somewhere and then give your information so you get sensitized now, and you go home and you start talk to your man about or that husband about using condom, it's a possibility that that man go thump in your eye. That man go tell you, say, look here, yeah, give me bun. When that man literally knows, say, he's also doing the same thing, you know. But so we usually encourage that individual to seek additional assistance. We talk about the fact that there are some behavioral change communication persons within the regional health authorities, within the all organizations. Let's say Jamaica Aid Support for Life, ASHE, E for Life, Children's First. They have behavioral change communication persons within their organizations that we can talk to people, counsel people within the regional health authorities as well. Because the regional health authorities, they don't just have those behavioral change officers. They have the psychologists, the psychiatrists, the counselors that will possibly assist people in having those types of conversations. So we tell people, if you can't do it, if you realize it's a difficult one, seek help. Get assistance in doing that. Reach out to the personnel at the regional health authorities, and they'll come in. They'll even go your yard with the tell if you carry your husband come and your man come at the clinic, and so they can have the conversation, because to negotiate condom is not an easy process. Especially if when you start out the relationship, you start out not using, and then somewhere in the middle, somebody get and so we want to start. Yes. It's a difficult situation to happen because people tend to blame each other of doing things that they're not doing, blah, blah, blah. So then we say to people, get help.
I like the word you use, Ricky, negotiate, because it really is a negotiation.
It is.
Give and take and find some happy medium
yes.
that will work for both
right.
partners. One of the other things, as you mentioned, partners, in my mind, the children that are involved in homes where maybe a parent is HIV positive, they also have to be included in the counseling, because I've seen instances where children have really, really taken the brunt of bullies and, you know, persons who know of the status of their parents, for example. And the child is innocent, but yet they get, you know, a lot of flack, and so they have to be counseled even how to deal with that sort of situation.
Yes, they have to.
Sandro.
So we have a winner for the first question, Davina McPherson on the Zoom platform. Her answer is correct, 2002, when did Sandals adopt the workplace policy.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Davina. Nicola Richards also sought to answer. She was listening, so she said one strategy was the walk and talk method. The runner method or walk and talk strategy, which she heard you mention. And then she also said to encourage and participate.
To encourage workers to participate.
Workers to participate.
Okay. All right. Well, we want to say congratulations to those persons who have answered correctly. And we want to thank you, Ricky, for sharing with us just a little bit on the Sandals story. And we know you continue to work with them and they continue to work with you. And that's, it augurs well, not just for the organization, but for their families and for the communities, because the communities are also served. Thanks, Ricky.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for being that champion.
And one last thing, I want to encourage other tourism entities who have not come on board in relation to our program. It's an important program because we know it talks about, it really address and focus on the workforce. So we want people to come on board more, to get information, to sensitize their workers. And as I said earlier, people, HIV still a keep, because sex still a keep. So let's do the work.
And as Miss Cleo would say, call me.
Right.
Call him. Let us know at tpdco.org. Or did I say that right? Let us know at tpdco.org. Yes. All right. Thank you, Ricky. We're going to now share a little clip again on living positively.
What does it mean to be living with HIV? Trust me, it's not different from living with no other health issue. You're still a human being. Because of harmful information, people continue to mistreat people living with HIV.
Yo, people living with HIV not different from me and you. Them love bull and peer just like me and you. Them ambitious and want to make Jamaica a better place.
A better place to themselves, them brother, them sister. Even for the people who are discriminated against them, people living with HIV are strong and resilient. Jamaica are them bread and butter and their home forever.
Girl.
Yes, girl, what going on?
Why be there? Remember saying all of we are Jamaican.
That's true.
And we need to accept that all of we live here and we live as one.
A true, girl. So then, make we accept and treat every boy, girl, man and woman living with HIV good then, no?
All of we are Jamaican and all of we deserve love and respect. And a bag of people for the things with. People living with HIV deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. Like how you love yourself, love your family members, and love your friends.
So if you know of somebody being treated unfairly because of their HIV status, or you are treating somebody unfairly because of their HIV status, take a stand, put a stop to it, and say no. It's high time we start treating people living with HIV with compassion, care, and love. It's time for us to be positive in our actions so that we can live positively for a better Jamaica.
Live positively.
Live positively for a better Jamaica. They say experience is the greatest teacher. Our next guest has learned from her life's experiences. She's a community facilitator at the Jamaica Network of Seropositives, JN+, a position she has held for 4 years. Her role involves advocacy, particularly for those persons living with and affected by HIV. Ms. Joan Stephen has been involved with organizations such as the United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS, UNAIDS, and Jamaicans for Justice. Her exposure has also been expanded through programs such as The Susan Show, Odyssey with Yendi, and popular YouTube show, Boya Things. Her passion for advocacy was ignited by her decision to disclose her status and experience as a person living with HIV. A mother of 7 children, she enjoys baking, gardening, and spending time with her grandchildren. Help me to welcome a woman who has been through the fire and despite all her challenges has been living positively with HIV. Give a virtual round of applause for Joan Stephen.
And I thank you
Hi,
for
Joan.
having me. Hi.
Good morning. It's so good to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's our pleasure. I want us to start off by your telling me, how did you learn of your HIV positive status?
I wish I have all the time, but let's begin. I was looking about to go away on a hotel program. And prior to that, you have to do a medical. Upon doing that medical, I was called. It was 12 of us. I was called and given a letter to take to the Ministry of Health. That I did, and when I went, because I don't know what was it all about. So when I went down there, the young lady took it from me. She read it, and then she said, "You're at the wrong place." So I said, "Where should I go?" And she said, "If I know where comprehensive is." And she directed me, and I went. Upon reaching there, they sent me to 114, which I did, still not knowing why I'm at this place. But anyway, when I went in the room, the nurse asked me if I know why I'm here, and I told her I know. And then she read the paper, and she slid it back to me, and when I read, I found out that I was HIV positive.
What was your initial reaction? You get the paper and it says HIV positive.
I sat, think, and then I just said, well, something that will take us out of this world. If it's not one thing, it's something else. That's all I said.
Just like that?
Just like that.
You think you were in shock?
I don't know.
So you just sort of, your response was just as cool as cucumber?
Well, the honest truth is I don't know, because at that time I just deal with it just like
So what was going through your head? What was going through your head?
Nothing at the point in time, no. I went through that process. It's on my way going home. then I start to realize, I said, what did I just experience a while ago? And then I started to cry. And a young man seen me crying. I said, young lady, why are you crying? And I said something, you know, I'm to your worst enemy. And that was it. I just went home and sat there and cried. My mom said, what was the outcome? And I told her the same thing as well. And then she started to sing, One Day at a Time, Sweet Jesus.
Ah.
You know, and that song has reminisced with me from then until now.
Where and how did you access help? Because we're talking about several years ago when we perhaps were not as in the know as we are now. And, you know, it was really frowned upon. Where did you get help? How were you able to access help?
Well, the honest truth, I accessed help at the Comprehensive Health Center. That's where I went. But I have never visited like the pharmacy there to get assistance. I had to go and purchase my medication at the time. So I had to went to, I think it's Marasca Road.
But at the time, the medication was expensive.
Very expensive. And here I am not working. And expensive medication was $80,000. So, you know, it was very expensive.
Wow.
Didn't know if I was coming or I was going. At one point in my life, I said, no, son, it makes sense to me, but I leave because I am not working and I can't afford this. But, you know, not everything you have people that bad. There, this young lady, she called me one time. She said, here, what? If you can only buy 2 weeks of meds, do it. And by the time the other week to come, you can always accomplish the rest. And I did that. But
somehow the good Lord provided.
Right.
Yes.
But at one point, no, I couldn't afford that even the 2 weeks of meds. And then she said, here, what? I have a friend work at Lasco. I'm going to send you there. And Lasco was not the brand name drugs. It was the generic drugs. But it's still better than nothing. So I went there. And I'm there, you know, I started to get meds. And although it was much cheaper to purchase it there, at one point I still couldn't afford it. But being the person I am, you know, very jovial, I will make conversations and talk. And there are times when I go there and I get my meds for free.
Wow. You did mention your mother singing One Day at a Time, Sweet Jesus. But how did your other family members receive you? How did they receive the news? What was their response?
My sister cried every day. She cried, oh Lord. You know, till one day I had to say to her, can I ask you a question? You're not living with this thing and you cry more than me. Could you please stop? You know, and then she said, but I'm not going to have my sister with me. I said, listen, let's pray. Nothing beat prayer. So there must be an outcome. There must be a way one day when things going to be better. But I was glad that I have that within me then because it still encouraged me until this day. Never to give up no matter what the circumstances in life holds.
Was there a point when you felt a change in terms of your own response to the illness, and that you consciously decided that, listen, this thing is not getting the better of me?
Well,
compared to when you were first diagnosed, where it probably just, it don't really sink in. And then when it's sinking, now you say, but Jesus, this thing, I have to deal with it. And you come to a point where you know you have to find a mechanism, a response that's going to take you out of this. Because you must have had some points when you got low.
Oh, Lord, you got low every day. Once it's there, you're low because of what you hear and how you see your friends our friends are close by, not able to be there with you. But I remember this lady in the community, when I went one other time and I said to her that I'm going to give up. She said, you're crazy? How can you talk about giving up? I said, but remember, I don't have a job. How am I going to sustain myself? Because I wasn't working at the time.
And you had children?
Yeah, I have my kids to take care of, not getting any support, right? Because, you know, when you find out about these things, it just lets you become distracted, you know? But I was glad that she was there to encourage me. She said, Joan, don't you ever quit on me, girl. And I said, okay, what must I do? She said, what you always tell me to do, pray. And I said, okay then. In the praying and the process, I still need a job. I need something to do.
Yes.
And then no, I was home one day and not for me, it was for my sister. And she said, Then my sister go do it here because me can't bother with them something there. So it was most like you do promotion. So workplace needed to go out and promote their stuff. And I take that initiative and I started there. And from that promotion, I ended up to start working with the company, right? And then in working with the company, one day someone went and told my boss that I was HIV positive.
And your boss, what was the response?
Trust me, they are the best. And I will always look up to them. They called me in a meeting. And at that time, it was September 11 bombing too in America. So she said, Joan, I heard something and I need for you to tell me the truth. Because every time, at that point in time, I couldn't deal with HIV. I tell everybody that my husband meet in a car accident and he died. So when she called me in and she said, what we heard, is it true?
When he had actually died from HIV?
Yeah, he developed full-blown AIDS and then he died because I contracted the virus from my husband. Right? So he died, he developed full-blown AIDS, no longer here. But I never talk about it.
Yes.
I couldn't deal with it. Because each time I talk about HIV, no, can't talk and laugh and sing and jump.
Right.
Tears would be coming on my eyes.
So at the time, he died in the accident, and what did you say to your boss?
But he didn't die in any accident.
I know.
I just tell her that he did.
I know.
You know, I just said he met and I said, okay, then let me be truthful to you. I think it's time I've been truthful. Yes, I've been positive. I contracted the virus from my husband. But I just didn't know how to tell anyone because I didn't want to feel rejected. Based on the information that I hear.
Yes.
And she said, Joan, you're always welcome here. And reason being is every time that you're going out a job, you don't think only of yourself, you think of the company. Because if I feel sick, I said, if I go home, always the work is going to be done. And then said, but girl, I'm sick, you're sick. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So I was, at times, if I'm not feeling well, I'll be sent home with pay, regardless of the fact. But it's not like I'm home for no long period of time, not even a month. But I will be going home. But it only goes to show that people don't give you the chance to express yourself. It takes time for people who are HIV positive to reach at that gap.
Right.
Because the point is you yourself have to accept what is wrong with you first before you can say, well, hey, this is me.
Yes.
So without acceptance, they are not going to be able to disclose because they're afraid of being rejected.
Your illness is currently undetectable. Now you have to tell us how you got to that status. How did you achieve that?
By taking my meds. You
So
know, I've been
simple.
on my ARVs because I remember when I went to the doctor and he said that the moment you start taking meds, it has to be consistent. I said, for how long? He said, for the rest of your life. I said, Jesus have mercy. For me in a pharmacy, you know, and then he said, well, that's the only thing that will slow down the virus. So I did on my meds. I'm becoming undetectable in no period of time. But it's so happened that in 1 year, 2010, I don't know what took place, but Joan's brain shut down for a year. Joan couldn't move. I couldn't bathe myself. There was nothing that I could do for myself. And they said that I had encephalitis of the brain, so it was gone for me.
Wow.
Admitted in the hospital. The doctor says that my family can't prepare to bury me because I'm not going to make it.
Wow.
But when man said no, God say
God
something
say
different.
yes. God say yes.
So I was there, couldn't help myself. And, you know, my sister, well, she have her ups and downs. She was the one that take care of me, ensure that I always get my meds and things like that. But I remember taking the same meds that my brother, who has a problem with his brain, take as well. We were both taking the same meds. So one day, you know, when I was home, out of all of that, because for that year I didn't know anything. I couldn't tell you what today is tomorrow, nothing. I didn't
And you
know.
have no recollection.
And I don't have no recollection. But I remember tidying up my house and I found adult Pampers. And I said, who's this? And my sister said, they're not for you. My mama have to sell them in a barrel. And I said, for me, I dropped the Pampers and I started to cry. And I said, oh my God, I was once a man, twice a child. Because once you start with your Pampers, you gone back to baby stage. And I said, don't you have any photos to show what I was looking like? My son said he videoed it, but he couldn't find the thing that he has out of the phone because he take out the SD card and you don't know where it is. But I wish they had it so I could show the world where I was coming from to where I am now.
Wow.
You know, because I've been through all of that. My neighbor said she has to squeeze the orange in my mouth. Cannot even hold, I couldn't hold an orange to squeeze it. So it was very bad. You know, run out of the house naked as the day I was born, and I spent one whole day at Spanish Town Road at the bus stop not moving because I hear voices in my head said I must meet them up there, and I just cling on to that. You know, so I was definitely, I would call that at a mental state in my life.
So when I say you've been through the fire,
I've been through the
you've
fire.
been through the fire.
Right.
You're currently an advocate, Joan. Which organizations and individuals assisted your efforts in reaching those that are most impacted?
I started with JIPA, Greater Involvement of People Living with HIV. So being there at sessions, peer-to-peer support groups, you know, listen to each and every one and realize that we're all in a different space, but we're suffering from this, not suffering, but we all have the same thing in common, which is HIV. And Mr. Reed, Mr. Ainsley Reed, I can never forget that gentleman, you know, he always said that he liked my spunk. And my spunk is, sometimes you wonder if I'm really HIV positive because, you know, I just never let, I'm not down for long.
Yes.
Which I always find something to uplift me back in no time.
And you certainly can't know by looking.
No,
because
cannot.
you're looking good, girl.
No, not.
You
And
can't
you know,
know.
and just for that, I started to get involved with groups, and they would invite me, and I started to go to JN Plus at the peer-to-peer support group. And at that session, I started to speak openly. And then I remember now I did this documentary with Vashon Brown. And then after that, I employed with the Jamaica Network of Seropositive and been there now for the past 4 years. But my vision and my goal is, I said I want to be the voice for the voiceless. I want to be the voice for men and women who are afraid of speaking.
Yes.
You know, it will inspire them and give them that form of self-motivation, because I tell them that HIV to me, yes, it's there, but it has hope. There's hope. So I use HIV as Hope Inspire Vision, you know, help individuals to be viral suppressed. It can be used in every different aspect. So when I have peer-to-peer support group, that is what I tell them. I said, what is it that, what's your dream or you would like to aspire in life? Look upon it from that perspective. Forget about HIV, it's already there.
Yes.
But you can always accomplish what you want out of life.
What advice do you give to the man or woman who has just been diagnosed as HIV positive? What do you say to him or her?
Well, first and commence, take your meds. Because that's very important, you know. But I know in some cases, some people don't even have a job to be sustainable. And I wish we could really find things that, you know, can get them more to empower them in order for them for really to take their meds. But be consistent on taking their medication, you know, get proper health care, because we all have challenges in life. But what to do is just to get involved in some peer-to-peer support group, because there you will see that you are not alone in this thing together. You're not alone. There are others who are going through the same thing like you are going through. And it will help bring them at a point where they said, well, if they can do it, so can I. So education it has to be an ongoing thing. Yes. It cannot be just now and then.
And to those persons who are living with a negative HIV status, those who have done their test, because we know testing is important for you to do it, to know your status. So you know your status last year or 2 years ago, but you don't know your status now. So what do you say to those persons?
Go and get tested again, because the one test doesn't signify that you're okay, right? And we have to remember, it's not only just HIV alone, it can be anything else. Because each time that you go to the doctor, you hear something. If you go and hear that you have a heart problem, it affects you, right? So everything affects the human mind, but it's just how you deal with it. Do you let it define you, or do you try to find means of way and say, well, I have to go on? You know, because even in the work environment, we tend to shun people, push them aside, not only because of their HIV status, but probably they just don't like the way they dress, or the person might be too fat. We shut up our nose, we do all kind of things.
Yes, there's discrimination.
Exactly, in every area. Yes. But what we need to do is to learn to respect each and every one.
And accept the diversity that is in the workplace or just out there in the society.
Right,
People
and
are
it's
different.
not only just each one teach one, but each one reach one as well. Because by what you hear, you can pass on your information. But how you pass it on has a lot to do with it, right? Education, we know these children nowadays, especially we see that HIV now is more prevalent in the younger folks. These young people are phone addicts. So put the information out there on every media that you know that they are going to be on, so that they can get it.
Reach them right where they are.
Right where they are, and stop treating these children as if they don't know things. They know more than me and you. So we need to get them at a level
The
where
information is certainly out there.
It has to
Yes.
be,
Yes.
It definitely has to be.
So Joan, you are a community facilitator at JN+. You have been living positively with HIV for all of 21 years. I'm sure there have been ups and downs. And I'm going to ask some questions to try to give away some goodie bags, but I'm going to ask you when I take the answers to those questions, when I give those questions and come back for you to end by just telling us hope, inspiring vision. That's how you interpret HIV. But tell us, what keeps you smiling? What keeps you with that positive mindset? What keeps you looking so young, fresh and green, as my songwriter would say? And you hold that thought. Let me ask the questions to our viewers. So, which organization does Joan work with to raise awareness surrounding HIV? And if you want to tell me what's her role at JN+, you can do that. And how long has she been living positively with HIV? So those are the questions. 3 questions I've thrown at you one time, and we're going to be wrapping up right now. Yes. You have any answers quickly there?
Well, not the answers at this time.
You have a comment?
Nicola Richards had a comment and a question. She said she'd like to congratulate Miss Joan on her recovery and her determination. And she'd also like to ask her how she felt when she had to be doing so much running around with a letter and the manner in which the nurse revealed the information to her in this letter. And also, is there any training that is ongoing for frontline workers on showing empathy to someone who has just received a positive HIV result?
All right, so that's a double-barreled one, Joan, and we have just a few minutes to wrap up, and we have 2 polls to conduct before we get out of here. So see if we can get it, nip it in a nutshell.
Well, I'm going to answer what's her name? Nicole. Nicole, that was God gift to me. I see that as a God gift to me because everyone asks the same question, which I cannot give an answer, but I'm glad that I am the way I am. And at least I know being the way I am can inspire a lot of other individuals. Hope inspire vision to me. Yeah. I remember I got that affirmation from a join a group on Facebook. And when they asked, that's the first thing pop out. Because the reason why I use hope inspire vision, you have to give people that sense of a surety that tomorrow you can be anything that you want to be just by trying. You might try and it didn't work at first, but you still cannot give up. You inspire them that they can be the better man or woman that they were ordained to be. Because they have a vision one day to buy them house and a car, and to take care of them families. So treat life like a plant. You got to plant a seed, you got to nurture it in order for it to grow. Any day you do not water the plant, it tends to bow its head, don't? And the moment you start to pour just a little, you see it just comes out back. So that's the whole thing about life. How you treat yourself have a lot to do with it. Negative thoughts give you negative reaction. Yes, we are tested positive for HIV, but positivity goes beyond just being HIV positive. Live the thought, dream the dream, everything that you can be, you can always be. That's my
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joan. That's a great way to end. Very positive note on which to end. Ladies and gentlemen, we're launching a poll at this time because we need to hear from you. So if you look on your screen, you should see that poll coming up right now. And we're going to ask you to answer those few questions for us. We want to get some feedback. And it's very important that you do this so that we can use the information that we receive as we move to our next project. I think that this morning has been fulsome. I believe there's been a lot of food for thought. And it has been an absolute pleasure guiding you through our program today. I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. Remember, it's important to know your status. Get tested. Protect yourself and your loved ones. And our tourism workers in particular, be vigilant. Each one teaches one. And as Joan just said, each one reaches one. And this forms part of our resilience as an industry that is so vital to the survival of Jamaica land we love. End the discrimination and the stigma against persons living with HIV/AIDS. And please, not just in this season when everybody is feeling a little bit better and smiling and, just be our brother's keeper day in, day out. And for more information on HIV-related matters, please feel free to contact TPDCO at letusknow@tpdco.org. That's letusknow@tpdco.org. And I believe Mr. Pasco gave his numbers earlier on. If I could find them, I would repeat them. Ricky, where are you? What's the number again? Tell me. 581. Say it again.
581-1433.
1433.
Right.
Make that call. And Mr. Pasco will be on the other end of the line, ready and willing to serve. And hey, like us and follow us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at TPDCOJA. On behalf of my team, Renee Johnson, who took on this role as producer and did it so professionally, Mrs. Deborah Bennett, Ocean Wong, and Catherine Maxfield. And of course, we did have some support that we're going to thank in just a while. I want to thank you for joining us because you've joined us on the various platforms and it made all the difference. Give a thumbs up if you were enlightened and enjoyed this webinar. A special thanks to our Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett, our Executive Director, Mr. Wade Mars, for specially welcoming you and for sharing their thoughts with us this morning. Our presenters, Dr. Aisha Rob Allen, Mr. Ricky Pasco, who is in the house, and I'm excited, you see? He's so happy for today. I can see it. Conrad Saunders and Ms. Joan Stephen for sharing their knowledge and experience with us today. We also express gratitude to you for just such insightful conversations, all of our presenters. Much appreciation to Rashane Robinson from our MIS team for his technical support, to Ruth Harris, TPDCO's Executive Training Manager, for her input, and kudos to the Jamaica Information Service crew for a job well done. We want to hail our friends at PBCJ, who I know we're also streaming live. And I have one last request before we close, and that is for you to respond to our final poll, which we are going to launch now. So here's another quick poll for you. Let's just wrap it up and place it on the screen. I believe there are just 3 short questions, or maybe more. But please, do you have a comment or question, Sandra? I see the anticipation on your face.
Just wanted to announce the winners of the questions that
Okay.
were posed.
Yes.
So, Ms. Stephen, the winner was Nicola Richards.
Just how many prizes Nicola win? I keep hearing that name repeated.
I believe they have just left Nicola and Stacey to answer the questions,
But
and they have been
Jesus.
doing a good job.
So she can say, she can sing Christmas I come me want me lama. Christmas.
I am sure she can.
All right, well, which was the question? Was it the one
The
about
question was which organization does Joan work with to raise awareness? And that is the Jamaica Network
of seropositives.
JN Plus, she said,
yes,
actually.
JN Plus, that's fine.
And she also said she is a community facilitator.
Yes,
and Stacey Ann answered that she has been living positively with HIV for 21 years.
For 21 years. All right. I believe we can move on from our poll. And just to say that from the TPDCO family to your family, have a merry and safe Christmas and a prosperous 2022. It has been our pleasure. I'm Marlene Stevenson Daly. Good afternoon.